Hey, welcome back to Journey of the Modern Yogi. I'm your host, Adam. Today's guest, we have Marianne Ames. Marianne is part owner of Bliss Yoga Studio in Monroe. She is an amazing yoga teacher, does fantastic breath work. She is a Reiki master, makes jewelry, an energy healer. She is a woman of many hats. She's pivoted many times during these COVID times that we're in, and has been very successful in all of her pivots, whether personal success or monetary success. She's been making it happen. We open our conversation in the midst of a conversation about cultural appropriation. Didn't want to cut out that section, so it kind of starts in the middle of the conversation, but we get right into it and go for about 2 hours. Love to talk with Marianne, and probably could have talked for a little bit more. So enjoy the conversation. We'll see you on the backside.
Maybe some of the words that my children wanted to use, it was important to me that my intention behind continuing that culture was from a place of respect and understanding. Right.
Yeah,
so
totally.
It wasn't that I was just reciting some sort of bullshit, but I had understood from the family.
Right.
So I mean,
yeah,
I
you did your
that.
due diligence, right?
I did.
That's what we need to do. Yeah. And I think that's where it starts to come into where you're the one that can convince yourself whether or not you're appropriating something, because you're the one that knows if you've really done the work to understand it or not. Nobody else can understand that. Right. Even if I feel like you're stumbling through your attempt to explain your understanding of it, you're still attempting to understand it, and through the explanations you gain the knowledge, right? So that's where I start to think like the attempt to gain the knowledge is the showing of respect for the knowledge being gained, and then it starts to become part of you, and you can utilize that as long as you're still staying in accordance to whatever power that you answer to, I guess.
Yeah.
As long as you can still hold your head high and say, you know what, I'm using this knowledge to the best of my abilities to help people and hold space and heal, or whatever you're using it for, and you're not just monetarily fucking gaining from that, right? You're also serving in that way.
Something, on topic, but kind of off. I remember Patty, when she first came to teach here, and she, being from strong Christian background,
right,
she would get some people that were Christian that didn't understand yoga and being like, how can you teach at this place?
Right,
Is this praying to, other deities or whatnot? And so
Right.
she actually brought that question to her pastor.
Okay, cool.
And her pastor said, with anything, it's the power of intent. It can be used for good or bad, pretty much anything, right? So what is the intention of what you're doing at this studio?
Right.
What is your intention? What is the intention of the teacher that you're taking class from? And he said, that is where it comes down to. And I thought, oh, what a great way to explain it, because I could be out giving coats to the homeless, which would appear to be a good thing. But if I'm doing it to take the pictures for the gram,
which so many people do now.
Right. Let's take a peek as to really what that true intention is for.
Totally.
And so I feel like with anything, and I have made snafus in the past where I've been like, okay, I got to apologize for that.
Most definitely.
But I think, again, that's the power of intention, and the power of coming back and trying to make a restitution in a sort of way.
Right.
To right the wrong that you didn't intentionally mean, but you did it.
Right.
To where you can continue to walk in
mistakes.
integrity. Absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely. That's what I say to anybody and everybody. We're human beings. We make mistakes. It's once we realize the mistake, it's then our responsibility to educate ourselves behind it.
Right.
To not try to make that same mistake.
Exactly. I used to tell my staff sometimes, it's like, shit's going to happen. We're going to fuck up. That it's not even a matter, right? The big thing now is how do we recover from it?
Absolutely.
It's all about the recovery from there, right? We're going to fuck up. We're going to say things we don't mean. We're going to do things that aren't intentional to us. We're going to, not show up the way we want to not show up. But once you realize that you are in that space, the ability to apologize and to show up in the way that you did want to show up will make such an impact on the people around you. That lead by example kind of idea,
I agree 100%. And for those people that perhaps that doesn't speak to, well, then they're just not in the place for it. But you owe it to yourself, right?
Exactly.
Doesn't matter what everybody else, but you owe it to yourself to stand up in that sort of way.
Definitely. And I think that's exactly where it's at. It's one of the things that I'm working on right now with myself and with other people that will allow me to give them this feedback is those little white lies that we don't hold ourselves accountable to. Like, I'm going to work out later today and then I don't, right? I'm going to eat healthy and then I don't. I'm going to go walk the dog and I don't. right? They're little things. They're little things that we don't think that are making that big of a deal, but you are the only person that is going to be the most honest and truthful with yourself. And because you know when you're not being truthful. So if you constantly are shedding these little white lies because of whatever justification that you have, because you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, you don't want to tell your 5-year-old, you don't want them to help you build this frame of a house, right? But you, instead of telling them why you don't want to, you just tell them, no, go play with something else. You don't give them the reason why. You're doing a disservice, and you're doing a disservice to your soul, because that starts to eat away at you, because you know that you're lying.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's those little things that start to add up and start to stack up.
Huge.
And then we're just lying to everybody, because if you could easily lie to yourself just like that, how easy it for me to lie to you and then justify it. Well, I wanted to save your emotions and didn't tell you X, so I decided to withhold it, or I told you a fabrication of that story.
Yes.
I'm taking your ability to have a learning experience away, right? Because now you're faced with some kind of knowledge that might be discerning to you or might be kind of jarring. And then you have an ability to show up as a human being in a kind of way, maybe a great way or maybe a way that you're not proud of, but still a learning experience is being taken away from you because somebody else has deemed that their intention is more important than your emotion.
So it's interesting that you talk about this in breath work. I try to do a focus on one of the 8 limbs,
right,
as we go through breath work, and so some sort of a little lesson within the yamas and the niyamas.
Right.
So last week was satya, and we talked about truthfulness, and really what does that mean? How does it break down?
Yeah.
How does it show up on your mat? So it's lessons from the mat that we then bring into our life.
Yeah.
And I love teaching that class. It makes my heart explode, because breath is vital to what I do.
Yeah.
As a human being, why I was drawn to yoga. But we talked a lot about satya and really understanding what comes from satya and what it's about, not just basic and plain truthfulness, but with yourself.
Right.
And then when you're able to be honest with yourself, it makes you fearless within the world, and you step forward in that integrity.
Definitely. And I love that statement so much, because that's what I'm starting to realize. Well, have Marianne throw her headphones on. We just started into a conversation. We're jumping right into it, folks. God damn it. Yeah. But that's what I'm working on right now, is that the more honest you are with yourself, the more realistic you can be with your plans, right? Let's say, like, I'm trying to write a book right now, and I've got many ideas I'm trying to sift through, and I signed up for this 30-day book writing program. Monica sent it to me and was like, hey, get your head out of your ass and start moving, right? And so I'm like, cool, all right, this is something, I don't feel like I will be able to write a book in 30 days, 60 days, but this will give me a process. And going into it with that understanding of, like, okay, I'm going to utilize this program for a process to help me get an understanding of how I want to write this book. But know that this 30 days is not realistic for me. So I made that choice right away, that's saying, okay, I like this idea, but I don't buy into the full thing. So I'm going to set my own parameters. If I would have just said, you know what, cool, I'm going to write a book in 30 days.
Right.
I'd be pissed off right now and probably not wanting to write a book again, because now it's been 60 days.
Well, and you've lied to yourself.
I've lied
and
to
you've
myself.
let yourself down.
Totally.
So you're building that pattern. Absolutely. Yep. I feel like in so many sorts of ways, when you're able to have an understanding of what your truth is,
right,
then you're able then to be truthful to yourself, which only builds more respect for yourself.
Right.
It gives you a better idea of truly who you are.
Yeah.
Right? So this is what I'm good with. And then it brings a place of honoring of self, which then elevates other people to want to honor and feel safe.
Exactly.
To be truthful in that way.
Because your soul can tell when other souls are being truthful. And like, there's like a draw to that, right? There's like this compassionate, like, hey, cool, like, let's draw this together. Let's build on this honesty that these people are starting to create, and see where we can go from there. I feel like your soul recognizes it. I think it's also the vibration, right? Like, I'm real big on vibration right now. I feel like anything I can bring in to bring back to vibration, but it's the same sort of thing when you're standing fearless and knowing who you are, you vibrate different. Right.
And you naturally will bring those same sorts of, like you said, soul recognizes soul, vibration recognizes vibration,
right,
bring it to you,
yeah,
and then you're in that place.
God, yes. And, and that's not to discount people that are on different vibrations.
Not at all.
Right? Because eventually, just like clocks, right? You go into a clock, one of those old school clock stores that have all the pendulum swinging clocks, and you put a new clock in there, and for the first couple seconds, it's off, it's not swinging, but within like probably a minute, it catches up, and everything starts to swing in alignment, right? And that's the same kind of idea. You get some of those souls that are, and I don't want to say misaligned, because that's up to you to figure that
Absolutely.
out. But when you start to draw yourself around people that have some kind of alignment and some kind of like focus that they've been working on and some self-work, you kind of almost naturally fall in that pendulum swing of their energetic levels,
yes.
right? And so like being around like people that are doing the work, right? That are doing the work. And that's not to say the people that aren't doing the work aren't doing anything themselves. But if we're around people that do the work, it almost is encapsulating to you, right?
Absolutely. I feel like something that I will say to a client or to a friend is just that it's like the Matrix, right? You can't unsee it. So
Right.
once you begin that sort of work, it's not that you weren't working back then,
Right.
but now it's peeled back. Now you can't go back, you can't unsee it. And then you fall into alignment at different times too, right? So
Right.
like my soul might, elevate to this sort of level, and maybe I'm hanging out here and somebody else is here. It doesn't mean that, 5 years down the road, we don't come back to that sort of place where we're in that vibration together.
Yep.
And being on different levels of vibration isn't right or wrong. It just is.
It just is. Exactly. Yeah. There's a guy named Ken Wilber, brilliant guy. He's probably one of our era's like smart guys, right? Just like a brilliant dude. He's been thinking about a lot of shit. He's just got a really good head on his shoulders, and he's got this concept. I don't know if it's his personal concept, but he talks a lot about it. But he talks about it in the stages of our finding our path. You can call it enlightenment, the moments of samadhi, satori, whatever. But he talks about this 4-step process called wake up, clean up, grow up, show up, right? And so you have awakening of some sort, and that just means that you have a realization about life that you didn't have before. It doesn't mean that you're an enlightened being and that you're going to fucking float on water and shit. But we have awakening moments all the time,
mind.
right? Yeah, exactly. Shit, man. Yeah, I'll float on some water. It's all good.
All day.
It's like a cat. It's like prancing about that bitch.
My cat does not prance
Oh,
on
yours
water.
a Maine Coon, though.
Right.
That's a giant cat.
They are heavy
It's
cats.
a giant cat. There's no prancing happening there.
No, they just lay.
Yeah.
And look pretty. And look majestic.
Right, exactly.
Look upon me. I'm beautiful.
Gaze upon me,
That's
yes.
right.
But
Gather around.
so wake up, right? So we have our moment of awakening. Clean up. So during that awakening, we've like realized we're doing some shit, right? And so we got some stuff to clean up, right? We're cleaning up our space now. We're like, I didn't, clean up this right corner in this room too well. I'm gonna clean that shit up.
Stuff in there.
Exactly.
It's dark over there. You can't see it.
Right. Yep. And then while we're cleaning stuff up, we're growing up, right? Because we're cleaning out all the stuff that we're now realizing doesn't fit our new mental process that we've entered into. So we're cleaning it up. We're growing up. And then the last part of that is showing up, because you can't just go live off in the fucking woods somewhere and be walled in, right? Just like we romanticize about it. I do, at least.
Yeah.
Go to the Himalayas. I'm just going to fucking live in the Himalayas, just meditate 10 hours a day and sleep and eat roots. And I'll be fucking good. It
kind of sounds magical.
Sounds great.
It really does.
It really does, right?
Some days when I've had enough of my kids, that's it. I'm headed to the Himalayas. I've had enough with you.
That's why I just hope they wish. I wish they would just finalize this transport kind of idea,
God,
so I can just
please.
transport there, be there for an hour, and then come back and be back in the world.
I'm going to be fine with that.
I'm cool with that, right?
I will get
'Cause
behind it.
Those moments of escape, I need, and I don't want to
do
call it
too.
escape, maybe it's that because like Vipassana meditation, things like that. It's like I need that reset.
That's it for me.
Need that fucking reset.
For me, I need the space to come home to myself.
Yeah.
So then I can then be home for other people. Otherwise, I'm just a messy ass house that nobody really wants to be in, because it's chaos and shit swinging
Right.
everywhere. And I don't even like to be there at that sort of place.
Yeah.
I just need that space.
Yeah.
And then I can come back.
Yeah.
It's truth.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's good to know what those reset moments are for us. A lot of times we don't know what our resets are. We just walk through life just like, fuck, man, I wish I could have a day off. I wish I could take a breath. I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. Figure out your reset.
I think that so many people have been taught to just stay busy. And that's their way of avoiding, right? Like
Right.
we see it in class, in the studios. We see it. Again, I feel like I can no longer unsee it, but you see those people that are constantly moving. I was one of those people,
Oh, yeah.
so I recognize
Yeah.
it. Constantly moving to avoid sitting still with yourself.
Right.
Constantly moving because you think you have to, right? Because as a society, we prize constantly doing, constantly moving, constantly achieving. And there's nothing wrong with being driven and goal focused, but unless we purposefully create the space to do nothing, to simply be at ease with ourselves. And it doesn't mean you have to sit in the Himalayas for 10 hours and meditate, because I could not do that. Well, that would not fill my soul, is what I would say.
Right, exactly.
But finding that time to sit and be at ease with yourself is priority, because then you got to feel some shit.
Right.
And that's where the work That's where the work happens.
Yep. I was just telling my 12-year-old the other day, we were I'm driving somewhere, I pick them up at their parents or their mom and stepdad's house a couple hours away, so typically there's like tablets involved in the car and phones and shit.
Yeah.
And Harper, my daughter, was talking about how she was complaining how she forgot her tablet. She's like, oh, I don't have my tablet, just have my phone, blah, blah, blah. And then we had a conversation about like, just figure out how to be bored and be okay with it. Right? Be okay with sitting there and either finding something to do or sitting in your nothingness. And be okay with that shit, because some of the best ideas come when we have a clear mind and we're bored and we're trying to figure something out to think of and do. It's like, oh my God, there's that thing that just popped up. Right? So if she can figure out how to de-stimulate herself at 12 years of age and not have to worry about what's on YouTube to entertain her, then she'll go outside and maybe look at ants. And go play with some crickets and shit, go make some mud pies or something. I don't fucking know.
I'll tell you, my mom, and I hated her back then, but I'm loving you now, Mom.
Yeah.
But she would lock the doors on me and my siblings on Saturdays. And I remember like pressing my face against the door, wanting to get in because I just wanted something to eat. But, for hours, and probably my young mind is exaggerating it a lot, but I remember like really just want to go inside the damn house.
Like, Mom, I get it. It's time to come inside.
That was it. But no. So like we had acres, and I would go down and I built like little fairy huts, and I would dam up our creek, and I imagined seeing sprites all over, and I would mark where we were and all of our acreage, and I learned about the land and learned about being by myself and learned about being creative. And it really is, I feel like, at least like I think about for COVID, for me, being forced to slow down.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I had already been exploring slowing down and finding the pause and finding that sort of reset. But that's when, in those moments where we are not with a tablet or with a phone, sitting in those sorts of places, it gives you that time to recreate so much and to get your best ideas.
Yeah.
It's in those places where you're uncomfortable, right? We talk about that. Oh, it's so uncomfortable to not do anything. I'm bored. I don't want to touch that.
Yeah.
That we are able to find some things that have been yearning to get out.
Yeah. Well, I think that might have been one of the biggest things that caused dis-ease in the beginnings of COVID, was that we were all forced to slam on the brakes. I guess 90% of us, there were some people, essential workers, but for the majority of us, we were forced to slam on the brakes. And like you mentioned earlier, as soon as we have the moment to take a breath and slow down and be with ourselves, we might realize how not happy we are, because we've just been going and going and going and blaming our dis-ease and our unhappiness on, I'm stressed out, I work too much, I got to cart the kids around, I got a I got a husband, I got a wife, I got all these things in life. But once COVID hit and we didn't have those external factors to blame anymore, like before online schooling happened, right? When we literally were just by ourselves in our fear, I think a lot of us were like, holy shit, I'm fucking miserable. And as somebody that holds space for healings, I've been contacted by quite a few people now that are ready for their healing to start and ready for their journeys, and I think, you're probably in the same boat. And we talked about this before.
Absolutely.
There's so many people that are looking for healing. And I can see part of it is like the fear and anxiety of the world that just happened and all the shit that we've just gone through. But I think a lot of it too is people finally got slow enough to take a breath and be like, I'm fucking so not happy right now, and I don't know what to do.
Absolutely. I feel like, one, like you were saying, so it is the collective weight during that time that many people, because they'd already been so deep in their own shit, then they felt the shit of the collective on their shoulders. But I think you're right. Within that sort of space of slowing down and sitting with yourself, I think that... one, the beautiful thing is that it really gave you a clear idea and perspective of what you wanted to prioritize. And then for a lot of people, it gave you the freedom to come back and, like some people, they have that great idea that they want to move away to a different city and reinvent themselves. Totally. I will choose to stand. I will no longer be Marianne. I'll be a Marianne. I don't know. Exactly. You know what I mean? But something, right? So I'll show up as a different person because here's this great time to reinvent myself.
Right. Yeah.
And I think some people, myself included, in those quiet spaces of having to sit with myself and recognize some things that I had been doing that were not serving my soul, that I was just doing because I thought I had to do.
Right, yeah.
coming back gave me the gift of growing and expanding, apologizing to myself and to others, and moving in ways that didn't serve myself, that didn't come from a place of self-love. But I was able to, in some sort of ways, reinvent myself and change some of the scripts that I had told myself so much, and then to really prioritize, right? So get rid of the bullshit stories and titles and things that we thought we had to do.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Because in the end, truly, we did not have to do those things.
There were choices we made. We just decided to keep on with the choice.
That's exactly it. We just continue to repeat until we don't.
One of my favorite quotes, a boss told me, and I want to say it was in, what book is it in? It's in the book called Illusions, The Story of a Reluctant Messiah. I believe it's a Richard Bach book. He also wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagal.
Oh, okay.
Great book. Illusions is a great book also. But Illusions, this is the where the quote comes from. But he says, one of the main characters says, and I'll paraphrase it, but when you, if you fight for your limitations, you're going to win an unfortunate battle. Right? So if you're always going out there and saying, hey, look, I'm horrible at public math. Look how shitty I am at math. Look at how shitty I am at spelling. Look at how tore apart my life is. Look at how out of shape I am. Right? If you keep fighting for that moniker, you're going to win. And that fucking sucks.
Absolutely.
Right? Change your verbiage with yourself, because one of the biggest things for me was changing the way that I talk to myself. Right? Changing the ideas in my head, and then changing that thought process as well. Right? So instead of like, oh, I'm such a piece of shit for forgetting this, it's like, okay, hey, I messed up. Inhale, I love myself. Exhale, thank you. Right? Do that a couple times. Be like, it's cool, man. Shit happens. We're going to fuck up. But if you beat yourself up, it's kind of like what we were talking about with those white lies earlier. You're your biggest fan. You're your also biggest critic. Absolutely. If you constantly tell yourself you're a piece of shit, and that you suck, and that you're forgetful, and that you're doing all these things, you're going to believe it, because you don't trust anybody like you trust yourself, whether you believe it or not. Your subconscious is like, oh my God, I'm terrible. I'm horrible. I'm suck at everything. And I'm just going to go sit here in the corner now.
Absolutely. Words, when we're speaking to ourselves, or even if we don't speak them, right, because we're hearing it. Exactly. They're spells. Right? So
ooh, I like that.
It's powerful. I really, truly believe that to be the truth. Last night my son was saying, he was sitting on the couch and he just got this new Mustang. So he's feeling pretty.
Oh,
pretty Christian. So he got his second Mustang. Oh, yeah. That boy is. Yeah. He saved up. He paid cash for it.
Oh, that's so great.
He didn't get a haircut for like months, because he was even that tight on his money.
Good for him. All right.
I was really proud of him. But he's like, oh, Mom, I'll be lucky if I make it to 40. And I was like, watch your words.
Right.
And he goes, no, with the way that I do this, I'll just maybe I'll be lucky if I make it to 30. I'll just be really happy. And I was like, do not speak out, and even don't even think, because you hear it, unless you want to make it happen, because your words are spells, and you are a powerful manifester. So don't say something. And I realize COVID, and I think I've shared this maybe with you, I certainly have with Monica, that for the longest time, I told myself, and I don't know if I made up this story, or if these tapes were fed to me, or if I assumed, right? So I'm like, don't ever assume that I was not creative. I always told myself, Marianne, you're not creative.
Interesting.
I've always said that.
Wow. Okay.
And I suppose, I know some of the places that it came from. I remember I was in college, and I was really into writing poetry, and I remember I got a really bad critique from one of my professors, and I was like, oh, that's it, I'm done.
I'm never going to write again.
Right. And I didn't, which is bullshit. Yeah. Same with, was doing watercolors, and I got a bad critique, and I was so who'd have thought I would have been that fragile? But anyways, I had told myself that story, that I was not creative. And it was in the moment when I was in the Mala workshop. This was a real pivotal moment for me. And the Mala workshop was like 1 week before COVID hit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And the first few, I was struggling. I was pissed off at that motherfucking beat. Just shove it through the damn cord. And I was over here just sweating, and everybody's just smiling and chatting, and I was like, you motherfucker. And this is my motto. I like to have a good time, but I must work first. Right. Because that's how raised in my family. That's work ethic is priority, which I have worked to shift a little bit more, because it's not always kind. Yeah,
your work ethic is fucking crazy.
But it's not always kind, though, so I'm trying to balance it. Good. But Monica said something, and without saying Marianne, but I knew she was talking to me. She said, bring the bead to the cord rather than push the cord through. And I was like, what is this mumbo jumbo shit she's trying to sling to me? She's just trying to relax me here, And I was like, okay. So that became my motto, bring the bead to the, and pretty soon I was doing it. It took me 3 hours.
Okay.
But
Right.
but I did it, and probably 10 minutes into it, I was still angry. I was like, I am going to do this forever. I love this because this is challenging me, and I can, and truth be told, COVID hit.
Yep.
I was extraordinarily depressed and really, really deeply struggled.
Right.
It was returning to the meditative quality of bringing the bead to the cord. So feeling the vibration of the crystals, the beads, breathing and finding a flow and a rhythm.
There you go.
And I'm constantly in search of flow and rhythm and breath. That's kind of the theme of my life, right?
Cool.
Like if I can find something to anchor me to the earth, which was the crystals, the vibration of the crystals. So that anchored me.
Yeah.
Then I felt safe that I could then flow. And it was without any exaggeration, the saving point for me, because it brought me out of a place. I remember phoning Monica and telling her how bad my anxiety, and I hadn't had anxiety attacks in probably 20 some odd years, because I had found breath through Power Vinyasa, but I had not had an anxiety attack in 20 some odd years, and I was having them regularly in the beginning. Hard time breathing. I'd have to hold. I'd have to go outside. My anger was swelling because I would get anxious.
Yeah.
And it was putting the bead, bringing the bead to the cord, and creating a beautiful mala, feeling that.
Yeah.
That, one, it brought me stability, but then it brought my belief back. And so I flipped the script. I am creative.
Yes.
I create. I am artistic.
Yeah.
And then from there, it just exploded on all these things that I had always told myself I couldn't do. I'm a plant killer. Remember, I told myself, I'm just going to bring my plants home to kill them,
Yep, Totally. Yep.
And I was a smother mother, right? But it just exploded from there.
Yeah. And now you're just like plant mom. You got plants all over the place.
I love my plants.
I was going to tell you, there's one type of plant, though, that I have not been able to figure out how to keep alive around here. I can't remember which one. It's a succulent of sorts. But every one that you've brought in here, no matter what kind of water treatment or place for the light, I just can't keep it alive. So I don't know what it is. But I have to.
You don't know which succulent it is?
So outside this door, you have that 3-wall hanger that used to be in here. It's the one on the far right.
Okay. That one is an asshole.
I don't know what's up with that. It's like a succulent. I'm like, So I remember when I first started doing plants, and everybody's like, "Oh, succulents are the best. You can't kill them. You can just ignore them forever, and they're fine." Fuck you, man. Because like I used to kill succulents, and I felt like I was like the Terminator of plants, right? Just fucking laying them out left and right.
That's it. You see that body over there? That body. There's 15 crumbled against the wall.
So it took me a while to get plants in general, but finally I got succulents. I'm like, all right, cool, I got this. This succulent, again, like it just reminds me of when I was just learning plants and I got everything wrong. I've killed I think 3 of these now that you've brought in. I just feel so bad.
My plant dealer sees it and she's like, let me just take it home and I'll get you something different. But I think she keeps giving us the same one. I think there's a lesson there.
There is. I gotta figure this out. I'm not talking to this one right.
Maybe it's you sent me that video of the little plant is like, oh, don't look at me that direction. And then the plant owner takes a look and the plant's all dead. And it's dead. So my plant dealer gave me these 2 beautiful philodendrons. And I thought I was the shit of the philodendrons, right? Okay. Like I got moonlight philodendron over there. I got the Birkin philodendron. I am raising some philodendrons really, really well.
Totally.
And so she's like, oh, you got to have, I think it's Prince of Orange or I don't know, some magical name like that. But it's just this orangey kind of philodendron. I will tell you what, I have moved it in every corner of my house. I have a sick plant room because when I was learning, learning, so I have a little sick plant room,
That's a great idea.
I do what I can, switch, just enough. And after like 5 weeks, like it's looking good. I just repotted it and put it in a different. Now I'm waiting to go home and see it like with its eyes closed and dead and stuff. I did. I had a big talk with it before I left the house this morning.
Right on,
I was like, you're looking good. It's a good spot.
Hell yeah.
But I'm becoming plant mom. I'm a little bit obsessed.
A little bit of time.
But again, feeling the vibrations of the plant.
Right.
Feeling the connection to earth. Do you remember our first You're at Bliss. And do you remember when we had the ZZ plants in Studio 2?
I do, yep.
And I have a picture of it. Do you remember when it was breathing against
yeah. I do remember that. Yeah.
Freaking magical.
Yeah.
And that was my first time. Well, not my first time. That was my first time seeing a plant breathe in that sort of way.
Right.
But my first time thinking, God, I really want to be good with plants. I really want to not bring them home and kill them. And I was like, yeah, I'm not there yet. But it was so magical to see,
Yeah.
that. And then Robin taught me how to be able to see plant auras, which was freaking fantastic.
Yeah, there's a Kirlian or something. There's a type of photography. It starts with a K. It's Kirlian, Kiliran or something like that. But it's this guy with the last name, same name, Kirlian, accidentally discovered aura photography. So it's a type of aura photography where you take pictures of like plants, animals, whatever it is, and it'll show their aura.
I
Really
gotta
great.
find that.
Yeah, I'll send you I will actually leave links in the show notes. Boom.
That is
There you go.
amazing.
Yeah, good stuff.
That would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am becoming one with the plants.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And
like
I'm honored to take care of your plants.
Seriously.
Actually, after this conversation, I'm going to water all the plants.
That's what I think even new students. Oh yeah, that one teacher. I haven't taken his class that. He's the green thumb that everybody talks about. I was like, yeah, that's Adam. Adam, Mr. Green Thumb is what we call you. That's your nickname now. We just call you Mr. Green instead of like
Green.
Mr. Pink or Mr. White.
Yeah, I'll be Mr. Green.
You'll be Mr. Green.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
That's good,
little,
right?
little Reservoir Dogs
That's
reference
right.
there. Hell yeah.
Little resurrection
Fuck yeah,
there.
man. Yeah, I appreciate that.
No, it's Mr. Green.
Hell yeah.
We're gonna drop the thumb.
Yep,
So just be
just Mr. Green.
Mr. Green.
That covers a lot of different monikers for me too.
I feel like it does. I think we're on to something. There's some magic there.
Exactly, yes. And if you want any of those stoner conversations, I do also another podcast called Zen and Not Zen, so you're welcome to check that one out too.
Isn't that when you guys talked about like different sorts of sauces for French fries?
Oh yeah, totally. We had a whole episode on French fries.
That is
Yeah,
magic.
Robin and I both used to work in restaurants. We have an ungodly amount of knowledge of restaurant food and knowledge of like systems and shit, just weird, stupid stuff. So it's good to fun to talk about.
But French fries, that's
French fries.
you can't go wrong with
I spent
French
an
fries.
entire day one time tasting French fries, which I thought was going to be the best day of my life. Like I was like, oh, I would get to go to a test kitchen and eat French fries all day. Man, I think it was the fourth round of French fries in. I felt like a dirty grease ball and wanted to just go work out. I was so just like...
I think I'd probably have to get to like the 17th or 18th round.
We were there for 3 hours tasting French fries and fried foods.
And were these like different kinds of French fries?
Yeah, like stealth fries, steak fries, shoelace fries, confetti fries, sweet potato fries, sweet potato steak fries, waffle fries, all kinds of shit. I mean, I felt like Bubba Gump, right? I'm just like, good, yeah.
I'll have this Cajun French fry. Oh my god!
You know what I just found out? Actually, I was talking to somebody the other day, just super side tangent, but two actors that tried out for Bubba Gump's part. Now, Bubba Gump, if you're not familiar, is Forrest Gump's.
Yeah.
He's in the Forrest Gump movie, and so Tupac read for the part of Bubba Gump, and Ice Cube both read for the part of Bubba Gump.
Both like two of my. I mean, if you've been to
God.
one of my classes, you've heard them at least 2 times in the class.
Exactly.
Not breath work though, because Tupac, as slow as he is, well, maybe with his cadence,
You can make it work. Yeah,
you
I
could get
think
into.
you can make it
I don't
work.
think Ice Cube really would work in breath
Oh
work.
man, yeah.
Oh, serious?
Yeah, right. You see Bubba Gump
That's
as like Ice Cube.
fascinating.
It'd be great. Yeah.
I feel like they need to recreate that.
I would love to see like the demo reels, right? Somebody probably recorded that somewhere.
Have you ever seen Saturday Night Live where they have like a skit on recreation of demo reels and they have like crazy ass people like
No, I don't think I've seen those.
It's good. It's
Oh
good.
my God.
It's good.
Awesome.
You got to watch it. They have like a holiday one too, and which is even better. Yeah, you got to watch those. Oh my god, I think Tupac would be amazing.
Oh my god, I would love that. I just love that. So I know we just kind of really just jumped into the conversation.
We did.
And I just love that sometimes because I think that just normalizes shit. We don't have to have introductions and all that bullshit. But the lovely lady sitting across from me is Marianne Ames. She is the part owner of Bliss Yoga Studio in Monroe. I've known Marianne for about 5 years now, 6 years, somewhere in there.
Yeah, 6, I think.
And I mean, pretty much from day one, it's like, okay, cool, you're in my life now. We're awesome.
That was it.
We're just gonna, you're a student, I'm a teacher. Eventually, we're teaching together, and then eventually, I'm teaching at your studio that you own. Right? Yeah. It's just like this has been such an amazing ride. I can't see. I mean, in the past 10 years, I can't see a place in this Pacific Northwest that needed a yoga studio more than Monroe. And for you to just be there, right place, right time, this studio has been just a godsend for myself to get me out of my yoga comfort zone in my little area that I like to yoga in, because this is a little like 20 miles away.
Yeah.
But for the people in this area and the students that we have and the feedback that you give and that you get, this was a long time coming for this area, and it was exactly what it needed.
Absolutely. You know, we talked about it. So as a side note, my business partner, this is where her and her husband lived. And I had never been to Monroe. Sorry. I had never been to Monroe. I was from Snohomish, right? So I stayed in Snohomish and Lake Stevens. And but I had never been to Monroe. And when we graduated from teacher training, my goal was always to go right into owning a studio.
Right.
So she took me here to Monroe, and we're like, that's it, we're going to find a place. And we had looked, and it was really important that we went in with a certain sort of intention.
Yeah.
And so we really we're in love with this building. This was where we wanted to go. And for the longest time, they weren't going to rent to us, but we just didn't want a space, someplace else. It just needed to feel more intentional, because it was important that we had both the fiery side and the nurturing side,
right?
Because that's best of both.
Get the balance.
That's exactly
totally,
it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the day before we had our kind of sneak peek, and we had been working long nights getting this ready, and we were behind because we opened up and it was just crazy. It's an old building.
Yeah.
And I went to go pick up teriyaki food, and I'm in line there, and I'm looking around, and I was like, oh man, I don't know if they're ready for us. And I so for the first time in that 9-month, 10-month process, doubt crept in. And I hadn't let doubt creep in before. I just followed, this is what we're supposed to do. I feel very much aligned. I know this is supposed to be. So for the first time, and that would make sense that maybe it would finally creep in.
Yeah.
And I remember going to bed that night, and I couldn't sleep. It felt like Christmas morning. But thinking, oh my God, are they ready for us? And when we opened up our doors, I couldn't have been... I couldn't have been more surprised, more honored, more happy. I wouldn't have been more surprised if I would have woken up in the desert with my head stapled, right? Like, I don't know, it's from Christmas Vacation.
Right, exactly.
It's my dad's favorite line.
Awesome,
with
love
my
that.
head stapled. But anyways, students coming in, rushing in, like we sold out of Legacy. We sold out of brand new memberships. People coming in saying, we've been waiting. We're so excited. Thank you so much. We can't wait. We have your back. Just invested before and we were behind in construction, so it's why we had our sneak peek that week, because we were supposed to open.
Right.
And the outpouring of love and support from this community. And it's been that way since we barely opened up our doors with dust all over to where we are now through COVID. I mean, it was our community that kept us alive through COVID. Our steady, consistent teachers. It's just been... it was meant to be, right? There's no such thing as luck. Luck is bullshit. Right. It's synchronicity.
Synchronicity. There you go.
It was meant to be.
Yep. You're right where you had the plan, you had the execution.
Yeah.
There's bumps in the road.
Oh yeah.
That's going to be there.
We stumbled. We are humans. We make so many mistakes, and thank goodness that we make mistakes, right? Because perfect is bullshit. That's why I tell students in class when they're like, I'm in search of balance. Well, first and foremost, balance is bullshit, right? Because everything changes day to day. It's you, right? So we talk about all that we can do is be responsible for ourselves.
Right.
So it's your internal equanimity while all the bullshit happens around you.
Yeah. I had a private client yesterday, and he's a actor, dancer. Probably, I think he's in his 60s, and he's recovering from a car accident from about 20 years ago, where he crushed his pelvis and had to have a knee replacement. Oof. And so, definitely a road back, right? And the frustration that I can only imagine that he's going through, because he's a dancer, so he knows his body really well, especially if he was a professional dancer or actor, you got to know your body really well.
Yeah.
So the abilities that he once had are now not really there because of the crushed pelvis and the replaced knee. So he's learning how to get back. And so my messaging with him was, you gotta be kind to yourself, man. You might have in your head, and you might still be able to get back to some of these poses that you once did, but what I'd like you to do is start to exercise and explore what your modifications are now, and take those past ideas out of your head for this moment, right? Focus on what you can do, not what you used to be able to do, and let that be your drive, right? Be kind to yourself. Be soft, right? Don't just, like, if you were a dancer and you have a crushed pelvis and you try to go into dancer pose, that's going to be really challenging for you. So here's a strap, here's a block. Do it on your back, for God's sakes, you know? And so just really getting him to understand that there isn't a textbook pose anymore, right? And there even wasn't one in the first place. Like, if you think about, and I'm not going to talk shit about Bikram, but I do have like one story that I like to show or to talk about is, because with Bikram yoga, it's very much about the pose, and there is a perfectness of it, right? And that's so counterintuitive because our bodies are all put together differently.
Absolutely.
So you could take a person like Bikram that is very, very on top of like whatever alignment that he's working on, and to the point of he'll mock you and belittle you if you're not in that, right? Sitting on his ice throne. Yeah. And so the idea is that, like, so the very first book I think that Bikram put out about Bikram yoga, there's a picture of him on the cover and a woman in what would be considered Trikonasana triangle pose, but it looks more like a side angle pose for vinyasa, right? Bent front knee, arms open wide, little lunge, kind of thing. The ideal, quote unquote, ideal posture is you have your front knee stacked on top of your ankle, so you line up the bone and you have that stacking. Well, if you look at the picture, her knee is protruding so far past her ankle that it's touching it's past her front big toe, which we all know now that puts a lot of stress on your patella and is terrible for it, right? But so I guess what the point is like there is no perfect posture, because even the person that said he knows what perfect postures were put the wrong posture on the fucking book cover of his first fucking book that he put out to the goddamn public, saying that this is the perfect posture.
Absolutely. I think that, and I think that can be a misnomer for a lot of people, right? Like within yoga, I know for me, that was something that, so you know my story. Do you want me to explain a little bit of my story?
Yeah, let's hear your story. Yeah, give us your story.
Okay, so 21 years ago, I discovered yoga, right? So, and I discovered it as a new mom. I had my oldest, Alana. She was wiggling on a mat next to me, and I popped in the VHS. Dated myself. That's right. Pop it in.
You remember who the instructor was?
Oh, yeah, it was Baron Baptiste.
Oh, Baptiste. Okay, got it.
Baron Baptiste, power yoga. And prior to that, I had never really had any experience with yoga. Okay. I was a woman of size. So I was probably, for most of my adult life and a lot of my childhood, I was overweight. But as an adult, I would say that I was at least 100 to 150 pounds overweight. Okay. Up till about 9 years ago. Okay. And so I had never really been accepted. Now, this is 21 years ago, very different than it is now. Yeah. I'd never really been accepted. And let me actually rephrase that. Perhaps I was accepted. Perhaps it was me that never accepted myself. And so perhaps I put that on other people. Right. So I have to correct that.
I appreciate that. And I think if anything that will give other people a chance to understand that, it's in us. The insecurities, the
criticalness,
the judgment,
the judgmentalness. I was, and I still have to continue to be very conscious now of no longer being that person for myself. Good. So I didn't feel comfortable to step forward in any place else. So I took my practice. Plus, I had a new baby, right, on the mat. And for the first time in my life as a human being, I felt alive in my body, and I didn't feel the weight, and I didn't feel the stigma. And I didn't hear the critical voice. What I heard was my breath. And the words, equanimity, was a word that spoke to me so much so I have it tattooed on my arm since I was 27 years old. Right. That's been something that I've always gone in search of. And I've realized that it is within me, right? I get to make that choice. Yeah. But 17 years ago, I was in a car accident, and it was 3 weeks before I was supposed to go to teacher training. And I broke my pelvis and broke my nose and a couple bones in my face, and it's pretty gnarly. Yeah. But long recovery. So I slept in a recliner for like 10 and a half years of my life.
Holy cow. I don't think I knew that part of it.
Oh, yeah. Wow. It was rough. I was in pain. Pelvis and then horrible pain down my sciatica. And it was bad. I was in excruciating pain. I remember one point in time, like looking at my husband and saying, I don't think I can do this day in and day out.
Right.
This is horrible. And it was bringing, so obviously I didn't go to teacher training.
Yep.
And I stepped away because I thought, well, I can never do yoga again. I can't look the certain posture.
Right.
I certainly can't align things as I'm cued to align them. Who do I think I am that I could even teach it?
Right.
I can't practice it. So I went into lifting and bicycling and still hurting, but went through all of that. Mm-hmm. And yoga brought yoga back into my life at the gym, but never believed that I could step foot in a studio.
Right.
Nobody told me I couldn't. That was my own. That was my own script, right? So I finally got into a studio and hated Hatha. Okay, I don't know why I'm whispering it. Hatha's a beautiful practice. It really is. And I adore teaching it.
Right.
It is a discipline that I take it. I take it twice a week now.
Oh, good for you. Okay.
And I probably will grit my teeth and maybe growl a little bit a few times.
Right, yep.
But it is discipline and it is necessary. Taking it and hated it.
Yep.
But it is what I did. And took my first vinyasa class at a studio from you.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I remember being like, oh, this dude is amazing because he laughs in yoga, because I was always getting in trouble for laughing.
I remember you told me that was our first conversation.
Right? I was always getting in trouble for laughing. And I thought, okay, he's laughing. He brings joy and lightheartedness. There is space for me here.
Totally.
And that's how it was from you saying to me, we need teachers like you. We need people who aren't doing it how it is supposed to look. We need people who are real in their body, who feel it and who move through it.
Right.
And I think it was like 3 weeks before teacher training that I went ahead and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
totally. And it had been a dream for,
years.
At that time, 14 years
that
I never thought I could return back to. And you very much aligned. You spoke into me, right? So I talk about pivotal people in my life. You have been a teacher for me in many situations. Monica also, and so it is unique, right? And it's just unique how it shows up. But you spoke into me exactly what my soul was so much trying to say to me. But you gave me the freedom and the courage to say, you know what, I am going to show up as I am,
right? And
it's going to be okay. And that's where bliss. I mean, that's what bliss was for. I always say, like, it's for the people that are on the outside, pressed against the window, looking and wanting so badly to fit in, but that in their mind's eyes they don't. Whereas they fit in, like they're meant to be. We still have some students here that are like, is this how this is supposed to look? Well, I don't know. How does it feel?
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, I feel. Am I supposed to feel it here? Well, I don't know. Where do you feel it?
Right.
Exactly.
And supposed to is it's a tough word. It's like that 2 words supposed to. It's like, oh, that's subjective. That's very subjective.
That's exactly it. So, I don't know. I think I got off on a tangent about poses
love
and shit,
the tangents,
and all this stuff.
We did a workshop a couple weekends ago here, and that was it was alignment and modifications, and that was a question we got quite a bit. Is it supposed to look like this? It's supposed to. We had to stop the bus and say, okay, I need you to take that phrase out of your vocabulary.
Yes.
Supposed to, done, out of there. Right? How does it feel? How do you use the land with you? Are you feeling engaged? Do you feel stable? If not, fucking change it.
Absolutely.
Change it to fit your body.
Absolutely.
And to be okay with being in that pose.
That's it's part of why I don't teach on my mat, because one, I feel like it robs the students of the experience of feeling it and seeing it in themselves. Now, obviously, in sculpt and in bar, I go to my mat and I'm there because it's a little bit different with weights.
Yeah, right.
Because proper posture and alignment is important with weights for safety. And same with bar. You want to be certain that you have specific muscles engaged and proper alignment because you don't want to hurt yourself. Vinyasa is a dance of the soul.
Right.
And if people were looking at me, their hip would be jutted out, or whatnot, because that's where my hip can fit, right?
Oh, yeah.
That is what is safe for me. And there are certain things that you want to do to make certain that you're safe.
Right.
But it is about how it is feeling for you. And it is about the connection to your breath, that you really get to feel into those spaces.
Right.
Like how we talked about those spaces of silence, and the spaces where our body pauses, where we become at ease with ourselves. It's like that in vinyasa when you can just get into the natural flow of your breath and where your hands naturally want to go, right? Instead of, am I supposed to be here?
Right.
Well, I don't know. Does it feel good?
Yes.
You know,
and that's for students as much as teachers. Like the newer teachers, and everybody has their own style, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast is so people can talk about their styles and how they've gotten there and things like that. And I've worked with a lot of teachers over the years, and have it's not like I'll approach a teacher with, this is the plan that has worked for all the teachers. Here you go. Right now, it's like, okay, what's your thing you're working through? How can we help you as an individual? But one of the things that I see the most with newer teachers, is that they try to memorize things, and I get it with like a hatha practice because it is a dialogue. Yeah. But I still recommend staying away from the memorization. The feedback that I was given a while back was, you teach from the students that are in the class, right? And so, when we're trying to memorize something, say we're in the middle of saying something and we're trying to find that next word, right? Because we've memorized it, we know what that word should be, but it's just escaping us. So then we're like, okay, pull your left shoulder back. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, now push through, what is it? Your left heel. Cool. Okay, got it. So you're like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, why are you stumbling? Why are you doing you're creating distrust with your students, right? And that's one of the biggest things for me as a practitioner, is when I don't trust that the teacher knows where they're going, it throws me out of my practice.
I'm the same exact way.
That's my own thing I got to get through. But having that experience, that's the feedback I give teachers, is that when you try to memorize, you're gonna, it'll happen one way or the other. But if you are in the moment and you're in your room and you're teaching from the person standing right in front of you, and you see their knee protruding past their big toe in a side angle, hey man, everybody pull your knee back, lift your hips, pull your knee back, so your knee stacked on top of your ankle. You're teaching from an actual physical person and the dialogue in your head, instead of trying to memorize and recall something. And that just, to me, makes it so much more fluid and so much more in the moment, because everybody can benefit from that one cue that somebody's doing.
100%. Two things on that. I had a new teacher here, and she just finished her training maybe like 3 months back or something. But she was talking about how hard it was for many of the TTs to have her be in class, because the script that they were given didn't fit her body. The cues that they were giving didn't work for her, because she used modifications and props. Her body was different. Right. And so something that the teacher trainer had said was how grateful that she was that she was within their teacher training, because it gave the teachers the skills to learn to teach to the students in the room. Right. And now that teacher is taking additional training, because she really wants to teach to every single body. Right. Yeah. Which is a magnificent thing, because again, there are so many people that think they have to be this. How many times, Adam, have you been said, well, I'm not very flexible? Yep. Well, no shit. Yeah. Right? That's why I said, you want to see me? I have to bend my knees when I touch, because I'm tight here. You see this? I can't even go into child's pose because I'm so tight around my knees from my injuries. So that's why I practice yoga. Right. That's actually a lie. I practice yoga because of the breath. Yeah. But I take classes and I do those other sorts of things because I want that flexibility. It's why I have to go through those poses. Right. And then this morning, Nikki, one of our teachers, she's like, I had this whole class I was going to teach, and she was just fine and ready. Yeah. And she even was looking at that paper, and she gets on the mat, she starts teaching something different. And she's like, my soul would not allow me. And I said, because you're trusting yourself as a teacher, and you're listening to the subtle intentions and the subtle wishes of the students in the room. Right. And I said, that can be really hard as a new teacher, right? Because you want to have some things in mind. It can be really hard shifting from student talk to teacher talk, right? That can be really hard.
Yeah, most definitely.
But if you have that pie, right? You got that good crust, you got that pie, right? Then you can look to see, okay, well, he doesn't like mushrooms. Oh, look at how this person is sitting in child's pose. I think we're going to need to do some more hip openers here. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
like there's been
There you
so
go.
many
Yeah.
times, that I've written this beautiful, magnificent, slow flow, and I go into the room and I see him and I'm like,
Right.
no, we're going to do something different, right? And that really, truly is the gift that we're given as teachers, that our students trust us enough to be present for who they are instead of trying to put on a show of who they aren't.
Yeah.
But then what a beautiful gift that we can then give back to our students. So it's this exchange
Yep.
of trust and reciprocity,
Yeah.
that we're able to be in.
Yeah. And when they, I mean, a lot of times when we give ourselves the ability to be malleable like that and to be a human, it's not like it needs to happen, but it almost gives everybody else permission, right? It's like, oh, well,
100%.
they're taking their time to do their thing. Maybe that's something that can resonate within me, and I think, just that I don't even want to call it a positive example, but it's just an example in general, to live off of. There's so much. I love Nikki, by the way. Nikki, she's doing fantastic
She
here.
really is.
Really appreciate
She
her.
is.
And to see creativity like that, and somebody that's a new teacher, to be able to have that aha moment at such an early point in their practice, to be able to say, you know what, I have this script or I have this idea that I had, I'm going to change it. I'm going to become malleable with it.
That was exactly, she's like, my soul would not allow me to do that. And I was like, it's because you were tuned in to a student in the class probably that came in with something on their heart or something that they needed really to work into, and it was not on that script. So you thought, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to tune into what they need, and that's a beautiful thing to be able to do. And I think you're right. It gives the students permission then to also tune into themselves and trust themselves. So many people come here. They're tricked into this idea of asana, right? So physical movement. I need to come and move, and I need to get this back. And I had a private session this morning, and she was so hard on herself. Every other word was critical in nature to herself.
Right.
And I said, that's not allowed here with me. I said, I want to honor that's where you're at. I said, but as somebody who has spoken unkindly to her body for so many years and been so judgmental and so critical, you're doing harm.
Yeah.
So come in here with some goals, but come from a place of worth, and self-love, right? But it gave her then permission to sit with where she is at this moment, right? Which then gives your body permission to feel safe, to be able to let go.
Yeah.
You see that in the energy work that we do.
Man, yeah, most definitely. I think, my family and I were in a book club called, I don't know what it's called, but we just finished reading Tuesdays with Maury, which is a great book. I don't know if you've ever read Tuesdays with Maury.
I know, but I've heard of it, yeah.
Oh my God, great fucking book. But, it's basically about a college professor that is dying, and his students start coming back and saying hi, and this guy, Mitch, which one of his old students, came back, and they just spent a lot of time together. Mitch is a writer for a magazine and blah, blah, blah. So it's just a really touching book, but he touches on a point here. I'm going to try to find this quote real quick. He says, the culture we have does not make people feel good about themselves. And you have to be strong enough to say, if the culture doesn't work, don't buy it. And so where that came up in our conversation was around how, let's take a magazine cover, for example. You could have the quote unquote Adonis body of a male's figure or female's figure, right? What we would consider in our Western culture, like physically perfect or beautiful, whatever, right? But, we have this stupid idea of what that is. And I don't agree with it. And I'm just going to put that out there. But there's like this Western idea of what perfect is. Yeah. The fact that perfect is just a subjective word in person or in general. But so if you take like what we would consider the most perfect person, that photograph would still be photoshopped. Yes. There would still be airbrushing happening to hide a wrinkle, to a cellulite spot or a bald spot or whatever it is. There'd still be some airbrushing done. So basically what we're telling our everybody on a subconscious level is that you will never be perfect.
You are not good enough.
You are not good enough, and you will never be perfect. We have the tools to fix the image of you to be perfect, but that doesn't mean you as a human are going to be perfect.
absolutely. I think that's one of the hardest things. I'll tell you what, taking a selfie, I search for the perfect lighting because, and I make a joke of it, but I realize I'm not being nice to myself. I'm like, I can either look like, the Crypt Keeper, or I can look, like
I've heard you make that joke many times.
and I've thought to myself, I need to stop saying that because that's not nice. But you're right. Like we have these perceptions of who we need to be or how we need to show up.
Right.
And, the truth is that there's no right way to show up except for how you show up.
Right.
And it is in those messiest, most imperfect moments that the most perfect, beautiful person emerges.
Right.
You think about like, it is in those moments of your most vulnerable, messy, I don't want to say ugly, but uncomfortable moments and places that you see that beauty. You see those perfect, I'm doing air quotes, perfect. Yeah. Perfect person or perfect moments, and that I think is a really important thing as yoga teachers, as intuitive healers,
right.
As anybody that's as teachers for young children, right, is teaching people to show up with bravery, with vulnerability, exactly as they are. I was talking to my daughter Eloise, and she's my 10-year-old, and she loves her freckles. Loves them.
Oh, she's adorable.
She loves them.
I'm glad she does.
And she loves her red hair. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, she's upset that her hair isn't as red as her brother Gabriel's.
Oh, all right.
And
Sibling
so,
rivalry.
right.
Yeah.
So she's like, "Mom, how is my hair going to get more red?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know." It was like but anyways, but I was telling her how amazing it is that she loves it because as a kid back in the 70s, being a ginger was not as cool as it is now.
Right.
And so I remember like being teased, like people were like, "Did you mark all over your face?" Did you put, what did they say? "Did you put Kool-Aid in your hair?"
Right, yeah.
"Did you eat too many carrots?" I remember really despising being a redhead with tons of freckles, or I very much, despise. And I know we've all have different things that we were picked on, and they probably weren't as big as they appeared to us, right? But again, we've got our satchel of bullshit that we carry on our shoulders that we just add to it, and then we continue that script. But I don't know what the fucking point was, but basically that imperfection is bullshit.
Yeah, totally.
And the things that I once thought were not very cool or were part of what I liked about myself, my children love. My Gabriel, he loves being a ginger.
Yeah.
He loves his freckles. I now love my freckles. I now dye my hair fake to try to be a red hair again, because I lost that a long time ago. I got gray a long time ago, but it just full fucking circle. Yep. I would have given anything to not been a redhead as a kid.
Yeah.
And now I pay a lot of money to dye it that color. So go figure.
I know, right? Yeah, the ebbs and flows of our fashion industry.
It is truth. It is truth.
I think a lot of that too is like, as much as we think things are wrong with us, it's funny because we always, I can't say always, but I think I've surrounded myself with a lot of great, very encouraging people, know, and so there's sometimes where I'm like, man, I just feel like shit about my life. And where the person that I say that to will turn it right back around and show that as a positive thing in my life, and I think, it's not always grass is green on the other side, or like, don't be a down in the dumps. Like sometimes we need to be sad. We need to have our emotions, but also like, we sometimes don't realize the goodness that we do have in our lives because sometimes we're just downtrodden, right?
Absolutely.
We get beat down by life. One of the practices I've recently started in my evening is before I go to bed, I do loving kindness, and so I'll sage myself, cleanse myself, and then I sit there for about 10 minutes, and I say what I'm grateful for. And I'm grateful for the life that I have, the gifts, the relationships, this fucking podcast, the ability to teach at your studio, all these great things that are happening in my life. And it's not to be like, congratulate me, I'm doing great. Yeah. But it's almost a reminder that like, hey dude, you're doing all right. You got some cool shit going on. I know things are hard. Like you don't get to see your kids as much as you want to. Monica's been gone for 6 weeks. She's coming back soon. But life's hard sometimes. Yeah. And very bad. I mean, shit. I just talked to a buddy today on the way in, who's dear friend of mine. A big shout out Jeff Morgan. He's a mentor. He's a business coach. I mean, just a fucking amazing guy in my life. And we'd stay in really close contact. And because of COVID, I hadn't talked to him in a little while. He's over the age of 55, maybe almost 60. So he's like kind of in that danger range. Yeah. And so we've just been giving him space. And I talked to him today, and he told me that he's on the recovery side from prostate cancer. Wow. And I'm like, motherfucker, you haven't. Wow. But, I don't expect him because, I mean, to be fair, like if I had something like that, I would probably play it pretty close to the chest. Yeah. And, but it shows me that, like, man, get out there and talk to your people, get out there. Cause I mean, he's such a loving man, and just like, he's been such a big part of my life that if something would have happened to him and I wouldn't have known about it, that would have eaten me up, So for me, that's just like hey, who else have you not talked to in a while? Yes. Get out there and say what's up to some people.
I think it's an important thing, like right now, and kind of rewinding back, but when you talked about like, you're not like saying that it's all positive, and there's no negative, because right. I think that sometimes we can get in that place of being so positive that we do then ignore sometimes those dark things, right? Like I think, light and dark, both are vital, within the shadow work side, which that's some slippery shit. Yeah. But, I think that making those sorts of gratitude lists. So again, right, like you become who you surround yourself with, and you become those words that you speak to yourself. So again, it's thinking of words as spells, right? Thinking of the stuff that you're putting out there. So surrounding yourself. I recently got one of my friends this beautiful journal, and he's one of the most driven people I've ever met, and he writes affirmations now, and that's really new to him. But he's like, am I doing this right? And I was like, does it feel right?
There you go.
And he's like, well, do I need to get more specific? Do you feel you need to get? And he's like, come on, just tell me what to do. And it's really important to me to never tell people what they should or shouldn't do. That's just always been in me. I don't like to be told what I can or can't do, so I like to extend that to other people. Totally, yeah. Some people, they do want you to tell them.
They need that guidance, yeah. And it's good and bad.
That is same. So for me, I'll oftentimes say, are you looking for me to give advice, or are you just looking for space to speak? Because I can hold that space. But I really try not to give advice. Yeah. I really do my best to not.
That's what can be considered the Socratic method of giving advice. So Socrates, back in Socrates times,
back in Socrates times,
him and Plato were playing with Plato.
It's like Snoop and Dre. Yeah, I get
exactly
it.
Right. Yeah. Socrates and Plato, man, motherfucking dropping beats and shit. But Socrates is known as, quote unquote, one of the smarter peoples of that time frame. But if you read anything from him, he admittedly is one of the most ignorant people. And he says the reason why he got this kind of moniker as being a smart guy is because that he would never give advice. He would ask questions around the advice trying to be gotten to lead the person to the advice themselves. Because we all know that if we come up with the answer ourselves, we're more apt to take it because we've got our answer now. So instead of Socrates saying, hey, you know what? Here's what you should do. He would just ask questions around the answers, around what the conversation that was being given to him. And through that, he would lead them to their answer.
There's so much more power, right? Because then we feel like it's then our choice. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think I'm the only one in saying that if somebody tells me that I can't do something, well, I'm going to do it.
Right.
And or if somebody gives me advice, and many times I'll say, I'm not looking for advice right now. Yes. And I'm not a big verbal processor anyways. I usually will internally process my shit, and then I'll come with the idea that I have. Right. And I'm oftentimes not looking for you to give me advice, because I'm pretty comfortable because I've walked through that. Some people are big processors. They want to walk through it with somebody. Right. And so if I have friends that want to walk through it, with me, I just hold the space and I ask the questions. Right. Because then the power then lies within them finding their own answer there. Right. I mean, isn't that what we all want, right? We all want to feel secure, like we've walked through it, we've explored our avenues. It's the same shit in the room on the mats, right? Like, it's really funny. Was it? It would have been Bar. Okay. And we all know that the Bliss Yogis are a little something special.
I fucking love this crew.
I do what I want,
Such
right?
a great community.
I do what
Totally.
I want, right? And I don't know who I think I am, thinking that they're going to listen to a damn thing I have to say, because I always am like, I know who you guys are. Who am I fooling? So.
Yeah, you built this community. You know what they're capable of.
That's what I'm like. These people are not going to listen to me. So I'm taking them through cool down after bar, and you know how they all kind of start to get used to a certain way that maybe you do like a cool down, like certain sorts of stretches. Well, I don't always like to do things the same way.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, roll onto your right hip, swing your left leg in front, and they all like turn to the back, and I was like, where are you guys going? And they're like, oh, okay, this way. And then I was like, okay, and then bring your leg to the right side, they bring it to the left. And I was like, I do not know who I am, thinking that if I have anything to say, you guys are going to listen, because you guys are Bliss Yogis. You do what you want.
Do whatever the fuck you want.
Right? It's the same sort of thing as human beings. We want power in the place of listening to what works for our body.
There you go.
Have we not been speaking for the past 3.5 years? Do what works best for you. Tune into yourself. You have the power to heal yourself. You are a powerful manifester. The medicine is within your own body, right? I'm not saying that doctors are not important,
totally.
right?
Yeah.
But we speak that into them because it's vital to who we are as human beings. Of course, they're not always going to listen to me, right? We're just here to take you on a little tour, take the little side parts that you want. It's kind of choose your own adventure, but I mean, it is same within relationships, but, again, on a tangent, I don't even know what I was going to answer to you.
So my analogy for that kind of idea is that, like, say, like a hatha class, right? So we can teach hatha the same way. I mean, I pretty much, hatha is a lather, rinse, repeat for me.
Yep.
Like dialogue's right there.
Yep.
I mean, it's cued in. I teach from the room, but it's
same.
And so, like, think of like pose like dancer, right? I've cued dancer more or less the same way for the past 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Little modicums of difference here and there. But, I'll have somebody that's taken my class for 3 years come out of my hatha class and be like, man, the way you cued dancer today was the best. I got so deep. Like, I just don't know what you said, but, I said the same exact thing I said that last 399 classes that you took from me.
Yep.
I'm just glad it landed finally.
You know what? That's exactly it. Because haven't you seen that? Like, and I'll see it here, in the room. I'm doing a session and I'll say something and they'll be like, oh my God, or tears, or I'll feel a release. And it's the same shit that maybe I've said like 10 times prior, but they have finally peeled that onion enough to where they're now able to hear what you have to say. Or maybe I've said the same thing that you've said, but then you've said it at just the divine time.
Right. Yeah.
That just in the synchronistic sort of way that they then can be available to hear it. And that's a beautiful sort of thing. I mean, Nikki and I, we talk about that all the time. She's she's like, I've said it or you've said it, but then I heard Adam saying it and I was like, yes, because you needed to hear it at that moment.
Exactly.
You're ready to hear it,
Yep.
ready to absorb it, bring it into your practice and make that shift.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
Everything lands when it's supposed to.
Well, I think about so dancer, for example, prior to teacher training, I had never been able to, I had always twisted my arm.
Oh yeah, the flip grip kind of idea. Yep.
Because it hurt my shoulder, and I could never quite kick away.
Got it.
And something and I'm certain that I'd heard it 10,000 times, something in the way that my mentor cued it was the first time that I was able to peel my shoulder back actually kick away. So it was the first time I was able to find dancer, and I think maybe it was like, and I'd only been taking hatha for a little bit of time, but maybe like 3 years or 2 years, I don't know. But it was like this aha moment, and I share that in class when I see somebody kind of, you see their eyes light up, right, and it's like this aha sort of moment. But again, it is divine timing in the moment.
Yes, it is. It is, man. So we've talked about energy, kind of bouncing back between energy work and stuff. And you've mentioned your breath work. And so I think you were practicing this stuff before we went into COVID times, but it seems like you've really ramped up your esoteric work a little bit more since this, know. Want to talk about that a little bit? Because I mean, we're sitting in your Reiki room right now.
Yeah, it's a beautiful space. So, it's interesting. I think that, again, kind of getting back to always, the hardest person on yourself is is yourself. So I originally started as a cranial sacral therapist almost 15 years ago. And cranial sacral therapy, I was taught by an amazing woman down in Portland. And but I was taught specifically as a doula, as a lactation consultant. So I worked with women giving birth and then brand new babies. It was a lot of intraoral work.
Okay.
And so learning and understanding at that point, and I really had a hard time with boundaries at that point. And I remember Carol, my mentor, my teacher at the time, saying, Marianne, you need to do a better job of putting your gloves on, because sure, it's a great way to be able to figure out where somebody's off or hurting, because I could feel it.
Okay.
You're going to hurt yourself. And I had a really hard time with boundaries with energy work, because I would feel the pain or the discomfort when somebody would come to me for treatment.
Gotcha.
And at that time, I remember because I was not a massage therapist, I had to become an ordained minister to be able to lay hands upon somebody.
Interesting.
So I became an ordained minister to where I could do body work on moms and babies.
Hell
that was 15 years ago.
Wow.
And so, kind of worked with it there and loved doing it. But again, I had a really hard time with boundaries.
Okay.
And when I became a Reiki master 4 years ago or something, it was very different because, and I wasn't exhausted when I was done with the treatment, right? So because I would always been able to self-treat first and then give, and also I feel like I'd learned a lot about boundaries.
Right.
And
that's very important with energy work, is your boundaries.
It's important in fucking life.
Yeah. Good.
Oh,
Thank
my
you. Yes.
goodness sake. And it will always be something that I have to be very intentional on, because as somebody who has dealt with a lot of trauma, my boundaries blur.
Gotcha.
So I have to be very, very intentional and very aware on that. So I found Reiki, and I never really truly planned on being a practitioner of Reiki. I wanted to utilize it as a tool in the classroom. I wanted to utilize it because I loved at the time, and I've since changed my mind, but I loved to be able to help with hands-on assists.
Right.
And then I could then feel the energy. And when people would then move through vinyasa, I could feel the energy of them moving. And I loved feeling that.
Yeah.
It was like, I felt like I was part of the orchestra. It was just amazing. Didn't really have any intentions of practicing Reiki as a practitioner. Robin was here, and I trust her. God, she's been a practitioner for
big shout out to Robin.
21 years or something. She's just amazing. And so I never really thought like I would utilize it as a practitioner. And then when Bliss closed, again, I missed the energy.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so that's when I delved further into that. And breath work is such a part of what I do with Reiki, because I feel like there's the train.
The Bliss Monroe train, man.
That's right.
Hell
there
yeah.
it is. Just on time.
Usually shows up about 2 minutes before class just to freak all those late yogis out.
That's right. Oh my God, we get the text. Quick, that's right. Or it's in yin and you're just settling in. Settle yourself in. And I was like, you know what? Pay attention to that, right? This is part of it, part of the practice.
This is your yoga off the bat right here,
that's
folks.
Exactly it. But incorporating breath work into a Reiki session is huge, because so many of us don't realize how much dis-ease comes from just not breathing fully.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And how much we are, dimming our vibration or being in a place of just off-centerness.
Right.
By simply not breathing correctly.
Yep.
And especially I noticed during COVID, so many of us in this place of survival. I used to call it the time of Vata, where Vatas can excel, right? Because those of us that are either Pitta or maybe Kapha, we got to have some sort of root, right?
Right.
And COVID really tore my fucking root out, took my anchors everywhere. But Vata, that's used to kind of being able to go from adventure to adventure and just being able to be spur of the moment.
And
this is their fucking time.
That's a good point. I never thought about that.
Oh my God, I had put so much thought into that.
Yeah, fuck yeah. The
so
Ayurvedic side of it.
I
love that.
Right,
Hell yeah.
So much thought about that. And I thought, this is Vata time.
Yeah.
But within the Vata time, if we're not comfortable with being able to go or be in the moment or finding that adventurous side, not needing to be firmly rooted,
right.
It can cause us to breathe real shallow. And so when we're breathing shallow, just in our ribs, we're not deep belly breathing, which in turn causes an internal fight or flight. We have pushed past where we should be sitting, and now we're in fight or flight internally, which then bumps our cortisols, which then messes with the catecholamine. It's the whole orchestra of
your cocktail of chemicals is going.
It is the cocktail of chemicals. You're
totally.
right. Which then, like, how many more prescriptions of anxiety? Thyroid. So many more people are being diagnosed with thyroid issues. A lot of that now. Yeah, tons. Pituitary glands has to do with the fact that we are breathing so shallowly.
Interesting.
So shallowly. Yeah. So like when doing energy work, I would feel solar plexus just super hot and inflamed, and a little less movement down lower. And so by adding specific breath work, just deep belly breathing, or 4-4-4 sort of count, people could then move their own energy.
Yeah.
And move their own stuck bullshit.
Yeah.
And things that might feel sludgy or heavy or just not whole, they're able to simply by breathing, things that they can do on their home in their bed, they can unstick their energy.
Right.
And so being able to bring breath work back just these past, I think 3 weeks ago, has been beautiful. I really truly believe that it is maybe more of a gift for me than it is for the students, because breath is what brought me, asana is what brought me to yoga.
Okay.
Breath is what has been my passion since understanding what it did for a chaotic tornado like myself. The nurturing, peaceful ease that it has been trying to teach me for all of these years. I really hope to be able to give that gift to students by simply tuning into their breath, having that space.
Yeah.
So many people are so uncomfortable with that 1 hour to themselves, where they're not distracted by movement in there, shifting things, moving things, arranging things, keeping their mind off of sitting at home with themselves. That breath work does. And it's a beautiful thing to witness, and to see that transformation, and to see that they're doing it themselves. Yeah. It's beautiful.
And I don't know if that's scary to people or what it is, but like I've had a couple conversations recently with people that aren't comfortable and familiar with energetic work, that have been going through their own healing process and have been doing it through, Western medicine, antidepressants, chemicals and shit like that.
Yeah.
And not finding success. But it's surprising to me how resistant people still are about the idea that you can heal yourself. Like if you like there's a friend of mine that's going through some withdrawals and stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, here's some ways you can calm your body if you get into these panic moments through breath work. And dismissed. Nope, don't want to do it. Where's the pill I can take that'll calm me down? It's like, well, you can continue that, and that's fine, but just understand that pill that you're going to take is still going to cause more problems or not solve the problems.
What are the side effects of here? Exactly. So instead, cover it up, put it in a box. That fucking box is going to keep coming back. Man, but this time it's going to have like a dragon that's going to pop out of it and burn everything down. It's.
You know what I just found out? There's I want to say it's MC Escher, the painter. Yeah. That paints. Apparently, he's got a bunch of drawers in his paintings. It's like paintings have people, and the people like say have like a drawer popping out of your chest or popping out of your hips or something like that. Apparently, like MC Escher, and I'm pretty sure it's Escher, but his idea with that is that we hold all this shit in our bodies, and these drawers are all these pockets of, which relates so much back to yoga, because we talk about how, like, let's say, like, for example, your hips are the junk drawer of your body.
Yes.
Everything gets put into your hips that you don't want to deal with in life, because eventually your hips are you're gonna have to deal with it.
You know what? Because hips don't lie.
Hips don't lie.
Hips don't lie. Shakira. That's all that I know from her. That's all I know from the song.
That's all that
we
matters.
could just keep repeating that over and over again. Hips don't lie.
But it's like, and I thought that was really profound, because that's a thing that we all, like, everybody knows who MC Escher is, or have seen one of those melting clock paintings of some sort, and that's, and so that subconscious message is in there, of like, hey man, we all got shit we're not dealing with that we're just stuffing into our bodies. Let's fucking deal with this stuff.
So much. I mean, I think back, and this was a really like pivotal moment in my life. So it would be 19 years ago. My grandpa passed away from cancer. And I saw the process of when he was diagnosed, and then when he had surgery, and then they ended up perforating, some stuff, and he had to go through the whole process. But watching my grandma, my mom, listen without any sort of question to what the doctors were saying. And I'm not a doctor. I only play one on TV.
All right. Yep.
It's what I say all the time.
Always.
Well, let me just pull this out because I don't have a degree. I'm just going to say, but without question. And what was that? Is that called the white coat syndrome or whatever that is? I remember
something like that. Yeah, totally.
And I remember my mom would for me, and I would get on the calls every morning with my grandma and my mom because I was the only one that was comfortable asking questions.
Right.
And I'm a questioner of everything. And I don't think it's disrespectful, but I have had people in the past feel disrespected when I ask questions.
Okay.
And I've always been like, I just ask questions because I'm curious, because I want to know. It doesn't mean that I'm dismissing what you have to say. I'm just curious.
Getting clarity.
That's exactly it. I want clarity so I can understand.
Yeah.
And I do learn a little bit different, so I ask a lot of questions.
Okay.
But I remember my grandma and my mom, Marianne, please get on the call. And I would ask all these questions.
Yeah.
And they would but they would accept things without asking the questions. And I always thought to myself, why do we not question things more? Which it's biting me in the ass because all 5 of my children are questioners. And sometimes I'm like, would you people just say, okay, Mom?
Right, exactly.
But as long as we can survive, I'm going to realize I'm raising questioners, which is good.
That's good. I love that.
It's good shit.
Oh, yeah.
But it brings us back to the place of self-healing, right? Like it has been generationally brought into us that we are distrustful of ourselves. There's this new book I've called "If Women Rose Rooted," right? I'm reading "If Women." I called it. Yeah. Hey, If Women Rose Rooted, and it talks about how since the beginning of time, Western religion has put so much distrust in women. Like, is the woman that ate the apple? Is the woman who was naked? It was the woman that tempted. It's that damn woman.
There's all these long-haired women over here causing all the fucking problems.
Gotta watch out for them. Those crazy ass women. But talking about how that was built in from there, and just kind of talking about society and the distrust of women and burning the women of the witches, all those sorts of things. Yeah. But she was talking about how in Celtic mythology, the women are these heroines, and they are the brave ones and the strong ones, and they're the ones that save society, culture from peril. But just talking about the difference, it is same with the distrust of, it has been spoken into us and passed down both fascia-wise, energetically wise, energetic signature from the generations of people before us. They say up to 10 generations past, we can still be carrying that energetic essence. That's my new place I'm at. It's crazy.
That's a deep well too.
Oh yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God. Right. I'm like, how am I going to know all this shit? But they were talking, I'm going to tangent it here again, but they were talking about how, for example, this new training that I'm in, they were talking about how her grandma, maybe 3 generations ago, and famine, right? So the Great Depression, no lack of food, right? Like they were terrified.
Right, yeah.
And so whenever they would have food, they would eat it up, right? So it's the clean your plate group, right? So that one spoke into her great grandma, clean your plate. So that great grandma spoke into her grandma, clean your plate. That grandma spoke it into her mom, clean your plate. That mom spoke it into her.
Wow, yeah.
And so she's part of the clean your plate generation, to where then she feels guilt or shame, and so what she does is she eats. So talking about how that energetic essence, that signature, all the way back, how, because energy is information and vibration.
Right, yeah.
How it's in our DNA and how it's in our makeup, and how sometimes it's not the trauma that existed in our life that is causing this bullshit with our physical pain or our autoimmune, right?
Right.
It is the trauma of past and how that's impacting where we're at now.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Wow.
You talked about the drawers, the hips, right?
Yeah.
And we do the myofascial release workshops here. And so many people have emotional breakdowns after they leave, or maybe it's even in class. We've seen it in yin.
Oh my gosh,
we've seen it happen,
totally.
where you have that release and it's this sobbing or it's this anger, and you're like, where did this come from? And I always say, my favorite teacher taught me, and I'm referring to you, that we have these pockets of pain and pockets of trauma that are in our hips. and when we give ourselves the space to lean in and to really analyze this sensation and give ourselves permission to lean into whatever we're feeling and recognize that this is the moment, that it's okay. We have no other place to be. We're committed to the process. We're committed to holding space for ourselves because we matter, that we can then release it, right? But that big stuff comes up.
Yeah.
And so many people have like messaged me later on in the night or the next day and been like, I cried and cried in the shower. And then like, I didn't have pain in my low back.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times physical pain is emotional, energetic trauma.
Right.
That's been stuck. And even if we think we've healed it, it's still within our tissue.
Exactly.
Right?
Issues are in your tissues, man.
Issues in your tissues.
Fuck
Kara
yeah,
used to
man.
say that to me all the time. I loved it.
Big shout out,
Issues
Kara
in your
Stafford.
tissues.
Hell
That's
yeah,
exactly it.
Man, yeah, and there's so much to that too. There's like we just hold on to so much stuff in our bodies that we don't realize, and that's why I love. I've talked about this before on podcast, but that's why I love Vipassana meditation. The Vipassana, once it's a body scan meditation, and as you scan your body, you find those pockets of dis-ease that you find, but you don't put a label on it. You don't say, hey, that's a bad thing that I'm going to focus on, or hey, that's a good feeling I'm going to focus on. You just say, hey, that's a feeling. I'm going to focus on that feeling.
Absolutely.
And through that focus, it's like sometimes things just need to be recognized for them to go away, right?
Yes.
So I used to work in restaurants.
Yes.
Restaurants, people fuck up on foods, drinks, whatever, all the time, right? So, being a manager, I would have to go over to the tables and deal with the guests and, appease people. And a lot of times what I found is that people, they didn't really need or want anything in return for, say, like a cold steak or something like that. They just wanted to hear their opinion be heard, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of that relates back to that kind of Vipassana meditation. It's like you don't necessarily have to do the work to, let's say, like untangle your childhood trauma that is caused by this knot that's in your hip. But sometimes just by showing that attention to that knot in your hip and be like, hey, I see you.
Yes.
And I'm just going to sit here with you. I'm not going to judge you. I'm just going to hold space and observe this knot in my hip. And then after some time, that it starts to come up. It comes up, and it goes away. Right.
Yeah.
Because it just needed to be seen. It just needed to be heard for a moment to know that you still have this work to do. And you're saying, oh, cool, there's that thing. Oh, now it's gone. Cool. Awesome.
I think that's one of the most powerful things. A few weeks ago, the focus was on ahimsa, right? So the first.
Yep.
And so do no harm. And it obviously it goes further than that. So, in breathwork, we talk about the lessons on the mat and then how you bring it into the world. And we were talking about how so many of us sit in that place of judgment and criticalness of self. Well, then it stops right there. Growth stops right there. So if instead you can go in, and I explain it like an anthropologist, right? So we're just an anthropologist. We're observing. We're noticing. We're not attaching outcome. We're not attaching a good or bad. We're just seeing it.
Right.
And so when we can, so then we're doing no harm. We're giving ourselves space. And from that's like the fertile place that growth happens and healing happens. It's a beautiful sort of thing, because I think also, as new yogis, or really rather as any yogis, right? Because aren't we all new every single fucking day?
Every single time you walk in there.
I wake up, I got this weird ass pain in my hip. I'm like, where's this coming from? Well, I pulled a muscle here or something, right? So every single day it's a new body. But we have to continue to remind ourselves is that I'm not attaching good or bad. I'm simply observing how this feels throughout it.
Yes.
I'm And I am guilty of it as well, and I recognize it in other people because it lives in me also, so I can recognize it in that sort of way. It also gives me a greater place of empathy for when people are first discovering how unkind they've been to themselves, or how judgmental that they've been to themselves, or how foreign it feels to sit in a non-judgmental way.
Yeah.
How it feels to not attach outcome to what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
To simply do the practice, that's where the discipline comes in, right? And to take that satisfaction versus a good or a bad sort of outcome.
Yeah.
Because we're all kind of looking in that sort of place sometimes, unless we can head back to honoring ahimsa, in that sort of way.
Well, I think too, it goes back to your point about, we were talking about earlier about teaching to the room and not like having some memorized script of what you're doing. Because if you're present enough to be able to teach from the room and the people that are in there, then you're going to be able to pick up on that stuff and be able to utilize that into your dialogue and the way that you're going to hold space in that class now. And And again, I don't want a lot of the stuff that Marianne and I are talking about. We've been teaching for a while now. Like, this is stuff that like we've been able to utilize in our practice because we've had great coaching from people above us and people that mentored us, you know? And so like, if you're hearing this conversation, you're like, fuck man, I have a hard enough time just remembering to cue your breath, right? Start with your baby steps, right? One foot in front of the other. But just what we're talking about is as you start to become seasoned in your practicing, in your teaching, these are some of the things that you can start to utilize into your practice to help you be into the moment and tuned into your practitioners and not just worried about the badass flow you just memorized.
Yes.
Right. And as somebody that memorizes flows, I do memorize my flows. I don't memorize dialogue, but I do memorize flows. I keep them malleable, you know, depending on who shows up. But, you know, it's not bad to memorize stuff, but you just be malleable, be able to pivot if you need to, and not just with your flow that you're designing, but with the words that you're using.
Absolutely.
You know, because your cue that you might have that you've nailed down for whatever pose that you're doing, if somebody's in there that has an injury, then you're going to have to adjust that cueing so that person can feel some success too.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most important lessons, I think, as a teacher. You know, so many people will come in and they'll be like, I'm sorry, I slept through your class. And I was like, are you kidding me? I said, you know, if you have a body and you can breathe, then you're practicing yoga. But one of the greatest places of showing me respect is doing what feels right for you. Is honoring yourself. I mean, I almost every Sunday morning I attend Olaf's Hatha class, and I sleep. And I have since we first opened up the studio. I remember there was one point in time I was teaching 20 classes a week and I didn't even know my name, and I hurt and I would have flare-ups, and I would just ask the teachers, can I come and lay in the back of the classroom because I need to heal?
The heat therapy.
I mean, absolutely. The infrared. I mean, that's what this space was supposed to be.
I remember that now. Yeah.
Right. It was supposed to be an infrared sauna. But I feel like that's one of the greatest gifts that I can give our students. Because I used to think, and I remember this, and so this was ego. This was new studio owner. I remember thinking that I had to give it my all in every class. Because again, I had to put a good or a bad to it. And I thought, what would my students think if I wasn't able to do a headstand or a handstand, or I wasn't able to do arm balances, or I wasn't able to do full extension in standing forehead to knee, yada, 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 you know? And then it was like, you're no longer subscribing to your deepest intention for opening this space, for offering this space. And that's to allow all bodies at all times to express themselves how it feels right for them. So stop thinking that you have to be these other sorts of things. And again, all the pressure I was putting on myself.
It's always us.
Nobody else. It's all my bullshit.
Yep, totally.
And what a beautiful gift. What a beautiful gift. I have to sit in child's pose with a block beneath my glutes because I'm so tight. And there's been so many people that have said, gosh, thank you. Thank you for doing that, because had you not showed that, I wouldn't have known if that would have been okay. And I thought to myself, shame on us as teachers for making our students that they have to show up in some sort of way.
Right. Yeah. I almost to the point now where if I see somebody do what you just said, like lay down through class or, you know, come down early, something like that, where they truly are listening to your bodies, I'll go to them after class and commend them. Because like that is for you to come down during the middle of a hot class that there's so few and far between right now that we can barely get into, especially as teachers, you know, we don't want to take the place of students, that if you take that time to come in and lay down, I commend you so much, because you're listening 100% to your body.
Absolutely.
And that's the only thing we can do. If we keep pushing past this shit, and we're going to become more injured than we were when we tried to find this healing modality. So listening to your body and coming down when you need to, you're doing more good there than you would if you just push through. Right?
Absolutely. You know, I can say that I am fueled by trying to heal my autoimmune and chronic illness that I have.
Okay.
And so I feel, and speaking all honestly, not in any sort of depreciating way, my reaction, my lack of self-love, my internal dialogue, how I treated my body, coupled with trauma from past, is what caused my autoimmune.
Okay.
I believe this 100%,
Wow.
100% truth. It was triggered by my lack of care for myself, my continuing to push myself, my not listening to myself, that horrible critical voice, the lack of self-love. And so as much as I can, I'm trying to show myself the space and the love and the understanding, and especially here in our energy room, I'm constantly searching for a better understanding and more intuitive healing to how to work with the people that have the autoimmune and the chronic illness, how to help them heal themselves, how to work through those sorts of things, because there's such a correlation between what we would look at as disease, hypertension, or heart issues that come from old trauma within the body, you know.
Stressful jobs that we have now.
Stressful jobs. I mean, absolutely. An old broken heart, you know, closing off heart in those sorts of ways, you know. And I think like it's part of why I don't teach power vinyasa anymore. It's why I've switched to slow flow. Because I teach so much faster, harder things, active things, sculpt, boot camp, bar boot camp, and I love those classes, but they tear you apart.
Fuck yeah, man.
And so there are moments I'm trying to be kind to myself. I love power vinyasa. I'm dying to take a class. I don't want to teach that at the moment because I recognize that too much fast stuff is too much for me as a teacher. So slow flow has been just this new, beautiful space for me that it means as much to me as teaching breath work.
Cool.
It is in those spaces, and I get the most beautiful gifts of seeing the students. They are dancing with their soul in it. Yeah. And they are leaning into what they're feeling, light and dark. And they are breathing, and it's like their body is just breathing itself, right? It's just going, you know. I got a message from one of our students, Reese.
Love Reese.
Yeah, she's a sweet girl. And she said there was a time that I just closed my eyes and I just was able to just go and feel. Yeah. And I thought, what a beautiful gift that. As teachers, we can hold that sort of space for our students to heal themselves. Like that's like the highest gift that we can be given. Yeah. It's just a beautiful thing.
I love how you put that too. Hold space so they can hear themselves. I think as people that, you know, we're both Reiki practitioners and masters, and, you know, there's the healer term that's thrown around a lot, and, you know, we've got to call it something, but, you know, we're not doing the healing. Like, I'm not going to heal you. If you come in to see me, I'm not going to be like bibbity bobbity fucking healed, right?
Exactly it.
But I will hold the space, and I will call in your ancestors, and I will keep you safe while you journey and you find your healing space.
I think that's one of the most important things. Like I tell people, I don't have the magic. Yeah. I'd love for you to think that I have the sorcerer's hat and I got the brooms out there like Mickey, right? Like I always wanted that to happen. Yeah, you know that one with like the buckets and they got the brooms and they're cleaning.
Action.
That's right. That's right.
Totally. Yeah.
I always wanted that, but no. We don't. I think that's a really important thing to say. Like, it's not the magic that we're doing. We hold the space. Right. It's why I'm always like, I cringe a little bit if somebody was like, "Oh, you're a healer," because I think we're all healers, right?
Most definitely, because we can heal ourselves.
That's exactly it. Yeah. I am simply hanging out with you and this amazing universal energy that is abundant to everything. Mm-hmm. I happen to be real comfortable sometimes in those dark moments because I am still processing my own shadow work, my own light and dark, right? Like, so I'm uncomfortable in those sort of dark spaces. I'm not going to shy away from feelings, right? Yeah. Like, that's what I say to the students in class. Go in search of sensation. Then you know you'll be there. You feel sensation? That's right where you want to be.
Right on.
Don't run from that sensation. It's the same thing within an energy session, right? Like, I'm not going to shy away from holding that space while you're feeling sensation. Mm-hmm. You're the one that's healing yourself, and that energy is available to you anytime. Yeah. It's in abundant. You don't have to worry that it's being taken from me. I'm not having to do. I'm not. Is here, surround us. Yeah. I think that's a really important distinction that we speak to our clients when they come in, is that, you know, they're the magic. Yeah. You know, they're healing themselves. We're here providing information We're here providing the safe space. We're here loving them, next to them, and walking beside them through the process of learning.
Right. Yeah. I want to come back to one thing you said a minute ago.
Mickey and the broom.
Exactly. Yeah, the Mickey and the broom. Yeah. That vision in my head, the pink elephants are just still floating around, man.
Those pink elephants.
Fucking hell, man.
That one actually scared me a little bit.
You know, I watched that with my kids, I want to say probably 6 months ago. And they're like, what do you want to watch? I'm like, put Fantasia on, whatever. We got Disney Channel.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I haven't seen that. And I think 20 minutes in, they're like, what in the hell are you making us watch, Dad? I'm like,
serious. A little bit. I mean, sometimes it's like the stuff of nightmares sometimes.
God, that's crazy shit.
That's right.
But no, you said something about how how you show up as and you have this expectation in your head of how you should show up, right? How you need to be this person, and this is Marianne, and this is the studio owner, blah blah blah. So Ram Dass has talks about that a little bit, and fucking Ram Dass, Ram Dass, right?
Yeah.
And so he was talking about how through his spiritual journeys, he reached this quote unquote point of enlightenment. Mm-hmm. So like everybody thinks that Ram is fucking Ram Dass, right? He's all peaceful. He's happy. He's great. He's good to go. He's got it all figured out. That he started feeling guilty when he felt like a human, right? When he would get emotions, he would get sad, he would get angry, he would get depressed, he would get anxiety. And he's like, well, fuck, I'm Ram Dass. I can't have these emotions. So he'd bury them. Yeah. And in burying them, it just made it that much worse. So whenever he did lash out or those emotions came out, it was a very negative experience for everybody involved, especially because Ram Dass has this moniker of being this peaceful guy, right? Yeah. And so he had to accept his humanity as part of his divinity to be the fucking human that he is, right? And if you have anger, you got to find a healthy way to disperse it. If you have anxiety, find a healthy way to disperse it. But you got to acknowledge it, right? Don't just dismiss it, because then that's where we start to shove shit out again. Even a person as well mentally and enlightened, I guess, is a Ram Dass type character. That's another one of those, like, you are given permission to be a human being.
Yeah.
Like, I think another thing that he was talking about, I think in the same speech, was he was in a psychedelic journey and talking to somebody in that journey, and he said, well, what am I doing on this earth plane? And what's going on this earth? It seems kind of boring. And the deity said, well, since you're on earth, why don't you take the curriculum? Ooh. And he's like, oh, fuck, I never thought about that. And it's like, well, you're here for a reason, right? You're here, you're in this flesh body, full of bones and liquids and shit, all this fucking weird stuff. And we're chocked full of emotions that barely anybody understands, but we all have. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Figure it out. Have fun. Make me proud. God. Like, that's a great, I love that.
You know, I was talking a couple days ago to one of my best friends, Dawn. Yeah. And we are, she just,
love Dawn.
Yeah, she's amazing human being. And I was telling her the process of what I was going through. Okay. Similar. Now, I am not him. I'm not this big, huge enlightened being, but I am Marianne.
You are Marianne, exactly.
And people have this perceived idea of who I am, which is all bullshit. Because I'm a living, breathing person that changes from moment to moment. But I was saying to her that I was having these emotions that were coming up: frustration, anger. And I was like, I thought I had moved past that anger. I thought I had moved to a place of love and respect, and that I was just able to move on. Right. I said, and then I got mad at myself for having that frustration and anger. And then I got disappointed, and I felt sad for myself for then shaming myself for then having that frustration. And I was like, and she was like, uh-huh. She was like, she's like, we're human. We change and we shift from moment to moment. And I was like, well, and I know this, but I was still like, then I felt so sad for myself then, because I was then shaming myself for being a human being when I'm always like, I'm a human being. Right. But like, I am a human being. Yes. And perfection is bullshit.
It is. There's no perfection out there.
And all I can do now, the one thing that I do believe is that I am given these moments of trials. I'm given these trials. I'm given these moments of hard times, these hardships, these challenges. I'm given them because universe knows that I will then testify. Right. Universe knows that I'm not afraid to step forward vulnerable, show where I fucked up. Right. And offer that as a place of teaching.
Yes.
because I am not perfect. Because I don't know if I ever shared this story with you, but when I was maybe like 4 years old, so my grandma and my grandpa raised me.
Okay.
My mom was very young when she had me, and so she went back to high school, and so my grandma and grandpa, the sun and the moon was who I was to them.
Oh, that's nice.
Very special. I mean, it's to have been able to give that, to get that foundation of unconditional love and devotion. I mean, I really believe that is what gave me my resiliency through the rest of the bullshit.
Yeah.
But so my grandma had a basement, and I went down to the basement, and we're doing all of our shit. And back then they canned everything, right?
Oh yeah.
So I was going down. I don't know what I was getting. We were going down to the basement to get something out of the cans. And my grandma went back upstairs, and I hung out down in the basement. And there was a spider. And there was this big like window, and I did not care a whole lot for the daddy long legs, but I was not, too concerned.
Yeah.
And I heard Marianne. I'm like looking around. I was like, my grandma's not here. What's going on, Marianne? And I look up, and well, it is the spider. The spider's talking to me.
Wow. You had a Charlotte's Web incident.
Well, I think so, probably.
All right.
And the spider said to me, and of course I'm 4 years old, so who knows? But the spider says to me, "Be the light."
All right.
And I was like, "What? What's this, spider?"
Yeah.
No, but what's that, Mr. Spider? But I was like, "What?" And shine the light. Just continue to shine the light. Be the light.
Right.
And I was like, okay, and so I ran upstairs and I told my grandma, and I was like, "There's a spider. The spider told me to be the light," and she's like, "What spider? What are you talking about?" And I was like, "The daddy long legs, I'm supposed to be the light. I'm supposed to shine a light. I'm a light. I'm a lamp, or something." And my grandma said, "That was God. That was God talking to you." And I was like, "That was not God. It was the spider. The spider was talking to me." But I have came to realize that no matter what path I take. So when I was younger, I was a childbirth educator, and then I was a doula, and I was a lactation consultant, and I taught and led, women and parenting groups and stuff, but I was to be the light, meaning not that I am this light, not that I am this perfect being, but that where I've been, shine the light on others where they can see their value.
Right.
Give the room for other people to shine their light to where they can find their light. Be the space to where other people can turn their own light on.
Yeah.
And I feel like if at any places throughout my life that I feel like I'm questioning, if I can be certain that I'm walking in purpose towards a light, in some sort of light, then that's where I'm supposed to be. And perfectly imperfect, right? Like
exactly.
Just imperfect in that sort of place. And that's my responsibility.
Yeah.
That's my responsibility is what I feel. And I don't feel that like in like a it's so heavy responsibility, but it is what fuels me, right? It is a fire inside that will never go out, that if I ever feel off course, I don't know where my true north is, right? Like, are you aligned with purpose? Are you shining light some sort of way?
There you go.
Okay, and all the people said yes, right?
Hell yeah.
So that's
I love that.
That's my spider story.
I love that.
I don't like spiders though anymore.
Uh-huh.
I don't like them.
Wow. Did another spider give you bad advice?
I think it did. I really, truly think it.
Spider next to it was like, "Hey, Marianne, fuck you."
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
By the way, there's no light.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, I don't. No. I've always been scared of spiders now since, but I feel like they stare at you.
Yeah. Yeah. And their 8 eyes.
That does it. And they call their spider people, and they all stare at you. I don't know. That's my own.
There's a guy named Daniel Schmachtenberger that I like to listen to. He's great mind. And he's talking about, the last time I heard him talking, he was talking about how black is white as white is black if you take the word is to mean implies, right? Because you can't have black if you don't know what light or white is, and you can't have white if you don't know what black is, right? Because they're contrast each other.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I love that idea, because you have to know one to know the other, right? And then the other part that he kind of followed up with was that the color black is the God color, right? And you take that God word for whatever you mean, right?
Yeah.
But the God color in the sense that, in the sense that, so if we think of the word God or source or, whatever you want to call it, it's the everything that is, right? It's all the energies, it's all the things, it's everything that is, right? So if you take that kind of idea with color, right? Every color put together is black. Like when you take all the colors and you put them together, they end up being black, right? And so the idea that black is the God color and not this light that we always think of.
Yeah.
I love that because we kind of demonize dark and darkness, right? We're like, I was in the darkness. I was in the blackness of light. It's like, well, you know what? Sometimes that might be everything coming together and coalescing as one is that color of black. Right. So everything, every idea, every emotion, everything that you need, sometimes that blackness is the healing. It doesn't always need to be the light, and that negativity doesn't need to be associated with the black. And I'm like, I love that, man.
Ooh, so that helps me have a greater understanding of shadow work. I mean, I think I will always, like, I was first really, truly, deeply entrenched in it when I went to Hawaii like 3 years ago or something, a real deeper understanding of it. I feel like I've always done shadow work without really knowing the name of it. Yeah. But really it's those things that we demonize, right? That's in the shadow. Those things that we might see as character flaws or shit that maybe we've been told or scripted that aren't good about us. So the dark.
But that's, and that's,
I'm like,
those are all the things
now
that,
I'm just sitting with this shit. I like that.
Along with that shadow work stuff, the things that, it's, I mean, with the small exception, there are some idiots that we have in our life. I shouldn't call them idiots. There's some people in our life that do try to beat us down, right?
Yes.
But a lot of that darkness comes in from our own insecurities that we have about ourselves. And and one could even say even about the relationships we have around those people that tend to beat us down. We choose to keep those people in our lives.
Yes, we
say we need that person because of this. They're our financial stability. They're our father. They're our mother. They're our sister, brother, whatever it is. So I have to have a tie to them. But you don't, right? You have an option to have people that are toxic to be not in your life. Right? It's a hard choice, but you still have that choice.
Yeah.
So a lot of that darkness that we hear and that we see is the darkness that we put on ourselves, right? And even if it is coming in from an outside source, we're allowing that source to come in.
Yes.
So that darkness that we consider darkness, just because you're feeling depression doesn't mean that there's not happiness underneath it.
Absolutely.
Because again, there's all emotions, right?
Yes.
And so all emotions are good and all emotions are acceptable. Not all behaviors are, right? So we get to the emotions and we either curb that emotion before it becomes a negative behavior, or we embrace that positive emotion so it becomes a positive behavior. But it's all of that together because the happiness, the sadness, the darkness, all that comes together to create this blackness because it's everything together.
Something that I just heard that just reminded me of what you said was that, and it kind of is, I don't know, I'm going to try to see if I can get back in like a neat little box.
We'll wrangle it back.
It's going to get out of the box. But basically it said like, what you're feeling is valid, but the way that you're behaving, oh God, no, I'm not going to be able to get it. I was going to try to succinctly wrap it. Yeah, it's gone. I can't.
I get what you're saying, though, right? I get what you're saying because we need to explore our emotions.
That's exactly the truth, right?
You can't hold
but
on
your
to
actions are not acceptable,
exactly.
right? So, and I think that's a huge distinction. But I love the idea that darkness is perhaps the light. I love that because you're right. There's so much apprehension and worry and concern or fear of facing those sorts of things where really like that's what we want to be. I think about like I truly gave myself permission to embrace things that I thought were bad or dark about myself, whereas now I feel like so much more of a whole person. Right? Like I was existing in a place of all these self-imposed have-tos that I thought I needed to be, which was very much on the yang side, very, I've got to get all this done, and must do this, and I must do all these sorts of things, self-imposed, that I allowed the other part that I perhaps saw as weak or as dark to bring back in that now it is whole. I love that. Will you send me more information on that?
Yeah, most definitely.
That really speaks to me.
Yeah.
It resonates.
Yeah, there's and it, I love the idea that we can have all this knowledge that we work with, and then one little piece of information changes that knowledge. And I think it was Daniel Schmachtenberger. I love that guy. But there's somebody I was listening to not too long ago.
I love him now.
Oh, he's great.
I
really
love him
great.
now.
But they're talking about the idea that we use tools in one way and then we find a different way to use them, right? And so he's like, take fire for example, right? So let's say the creation, we're back in like Neanderthal times when fire is just now it's just now becoming something that we're like, oh my God, there's this fire thing. We can now keep our caves warm and we can fend off and we can defend ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We can fend off animals and shit like that. And let's say we just used it like that for a long time because we tried to touch it and it burned us. So we're like, oh, that's dangerous, right? So we keep a distance from it, but we know that it's warm, so we can be radius to it, and again, we can fight people off. But then one day, let's just say the family wolf got sick, died, and it rolled into the fire accidentally, and they're like, oh wait, we can cook with that? We can eat that now, and that changes. So the idea is like, okay, so we've been using this one thing the way that we felt, quote unquote, we knew how to use it for the longest time. And then all of a sudden we realize this is now a tool for something else. This is a tool for our brains to now start to connect in different ways. This is a tool for our bodies to get proteins in different ways to help us develop, right? And so that kind of idea with the darkness, right? We've accepted darkness as this negative thing for so long that this one little different twist on it has now made it a tool instead of a scary thing. Right. And I love that. And with that, it's like, how many other things in our lives that we encounter are we using for a specific way that we think is the right, quote unquote, way to use it? But there's another more intrinsic or healthy or healing way that we can change this thing into something that's more accepted or something that just has a different use to it. Just it opens up the whole world of opportunities for everything that we currently have. Just how do we want to twist this and how do we want to look at this in a different way to make this a positive instead of a negative?
It makes me think about like the different forms of water, right? So we got ice, and then when it starts to boil and then it becomes, vapor and stuff. So thinking about the different sorts of forms and the shit that we didn't know, but how they're all valuable. So maybe not attaching the good or the bad, just is.
There you go. I love that.
Yeah. That's a fascinating thought though. I now I'm over here like, I want to continue to learn more about that.
Well, you know what? Why don't we just leave that little nugget on the table for everybody and walk away? So why don't you think about your life and maybe some things that tools you're utilizing in your life that if you just change your thought process and how that tool is being utilized, how that could change that tool's use in general. Like that can be a negative thing that turns into a positive or even vice versa, right? Or a positive that becomes even more positive because of this new level of opening that you found. So that's your challenge, folks, as we sign off here at Journey of the Modern Yogi from our first on-site location at Bliss Yoga Studio Monroe with the lovely Marianne Ames. You now have homework. So I don't know who you're turning it into. I don't know. You could email it to me. My stuff will be in the show notes. Go ahead and email me your information as you find the way that you can use your tool differently. But thank you so much for joining me, love. I appreciate the conversation.
My honor, my friend.
Look forward to having you back.
I can't wait.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for joining us in our conversation with Marianne today. If you have any questions about what we talked about, I'll leave a bunch of notes in the show notes. If you need to reach out to either of us, our emails and contact info would be there as well. If you're digging the podcast, please subscribe in your favorite platform. And reach out if you have any questions. If you want to be a guest, if you have a topic you want to talk about, anything is open. We look forward to hearing from you. Obeisance to you all.